for my speaker. Are we live?
Yeah, we are.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started with our staff meeting. Glad to have all of you here this morning. I appreciate you coming on out early. And one of the things, I didn't bring my little pep meeting book this morning, but I do have some pep stuff to kind of talk about. Just because of the day and age we're in and the current environment of the world, I have some suggestions for social media contact this morning. Doesn't that sound exciting? Yeah, I know that's exciting. But just some things I've learned in the last week or so that's just suggestions for you. All of you are staff here at Bells Chapel Assembly of God Church. And as you know, the number one form of contact and communication anymore in this world is social media. You're almost never going to get a phone call anymore. You're going to get a text message, or you're going to get a message or a Facebook message. I don't do all that other stuff that's out there, but some of you may do Instagram, and I don't know. I don't know what else is out there, but all that other stuff that's out there. And but if you are just as staff, let me give you some just some suggestions on how to handle those type communications. If someone is messaging you on Facebook, Messenger, whatever, and they are a student or another person at the church, and they're addressing you, make sure the conversation always has a pointed end. Okay? Like, for example, let's say if Melissa were to text me on Monday morning, tomorrow morning, and say, hey, and I send back, hey, what's up? And it just becomes an open-ended conversation that's just a conversation for the sake of conversation, I need to disengage from that conversation. As staff in the church, open-ended conversations that seem to be leading nowhere may end up leading somewhere. And so if you eliminate those form of conversations, those don't end up getting you in any kind of place that you didn't intend for it to go. Okay? Also, you know, if somebody asks you a question, answer the question. Be complete in answering the question. If it's a counseling kind of situation, be very, very careful that you're trying to keep it as short as you can, as directed as you can. And if it's going any direction that makes you feel uncomfortable at all for any reason, disengage from it. We just live in a day and age of social media where it's so easy to read stuff into text messages or private messages or whatever it is you're doing. You know, when it's text messaging, I can read any emotion into it that I want to. If it's a private message, messenger message, I can read anything into that I want to. Now, if by chance you find yourself in a situation where somebody texts you something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable, makes a request that makes you feel uncomfortable, or you're thinking, oh, that may be going a direction that doesn't need to go. Suggestions for you. Immediately show it to your spouse. Right then. Don't hide it. Don't delete it. Don't erase it. Show it to your spouse immediately. And then send back, hey, I think that's a little inappropriate. I want you to know that I have let my spouse read this. Let's change the conversation. But just be very proactive in that. Remember, nobody on this planet is going to protect your good name or your reputation but you. Think about that. Nobody's going to protect your good name or your ministry but you. But there is a very real enemy out there who has desire and design to destroy your ministry. So just keep those things in mind. It's in this social media driven age we are in, it's absolutely amazing what's going on out there in the world. Y'all all know, y'all been aware and witnessed the Me Too stuff that's been going on. And so much of the stuff that's come out in this Me Too situation, if people had been much more cautious in their communications, then it wouldn't even be there. It wouldn't even be there at all. So let's just all be very, very careful. Remember, you are staff, Bells Chapel Assembly of God Church. You are the heroes of faith. You're the tip of the spear for the church. And we just want to make sure, you know, the Scripture says, in all things do it as unto Christ. We just want to make sure that in all of our communications we are, I would prefer to be accused of trying way too hard to keep all my communications appropriate than to be caught with a little bit of an inappropriate conversation when I didn't mean it that way. So just, you know, I'd far prefer somebody be offended because you shut the communication off when you thought it was going in a direction it shouldn't, than 6 months later somebody come back and go, well, I'm offended because of the conversation. So just be very, very cautious in all that. And again, in this social media age, it changes so much. You know, if Alan calls me on the phone, I really kind of know what's going on with Alan because I can hear the tone of his voice, the way he's saying things, you know, all of those cues that we learn in communication when we're communicating with each other. But boy, I just don't have any of those cues when all I'm doing is reading what's on the text. Unless he's an emoji guy, you know. If he's giving me all those good emojis, then I know we're in good shape, you know. But minus those emojis, who knows what's going on here. So anyway, just keep all that in mind as you are communicating. I do know I'm not telling you not to communicate. It's very important that we communicate. But we just have to be very, very careful to who, how, when, where. And again, your spouse is going to be your best friend, partner in these type of communications. Show it to them. Don't lock your phone. Don't hide that stuff. Keep it out in the open where they'll be able to see it. So let's go back to some good stuff I love to talk about. If you weren't here Wednesday night, you didn't get to hear me say this. And if you weren't here Wednesday night, now you just get to hear me say it the second time, and you're probably going to hear it many, many times after this. But our God is a God that quickens the dead. Think about that just a second. Our God is a God that quickens the dead. He calls those things that be not as though they are. And for each and every one of you, my heroes of faith and my soldiers well armed, I want to remind you that God calls those things that be not as though they are. He's not a God that goes around and calls those things that are as if they are not. Entirely different thing. God is not a God of cursing. God is a God of blessing. When you call those things that are as if they are not, you are actually calling a curse upon something. But when you call things that are not as though they are, you're calling blessings upon people. And I'm going to give you a prime example of this morning while I'm getting to Lazarus here in in John chapter 12. Here I want to remind you, 11. I'll get my chapter right. My page flipped on me. In chapter 11, talking about Lazarus, think about this. God is not ignorant of what was in your life. God is not ignorant of what is in your life. But He's also not ignorant of what His desire is to be in your life. Let's look at Lazarus here just a second. In John chapter 11, all of a sudden, Jesus says to them plainly, Lazarus is dead. He's not ignorant of what's going on in Lazarus' life. He's not ignorant of the fact that Lazarus was sick. He got the word, hung around for a couple days, and now they're on their way. He says Lazarus is sleeping. And they say, wow, Lazarus must be getting better if he's sleeping. Jesus, in frustration with them, says, no, Lazarus is dead. He's not ignorant of what was in Lazarus' life. And he was not ignorant of what is in Lazarus' life. And he was not ignorant of what God's will was. Because then he said to his sister, in verse 25, though he may be dead, he shall live. He was not ignorant of what was in Lazarus' life. He was not ignorant of what is in Lazarus' life. And he was absolutely not ignorant of what was about to be in Lazarus' life. And then I want you to notice this. Whenever he goes up to the tomb, he does not say to Lazarus, hey, you dead thing, death, get off of him. He doesn't speak to Lazarus in Lazarus' current condition. He speaks to Lazarus in the place that he knows he's about to be. How often do you go out and talk to a dead man and tell him to come forth? He didn't talk to Lazarus as if Lazarus was dead. He didn't talk to Lazarus about where Lazarus was. He didn't talk to him about where he is. But he spoke to Lazarus where he longed for Lazarus to be. And when God is dealing with you as heroes of faith and soldiers well armed, He is not ignorant of where you have been in your life. He's not ignorant of where you are in your life right now. But He is fully aware of His desire of where you're going to be. And today, He will not talk to you about where you were or where you are. But He is calling you to where you are going to be. Grab a hold of the voice of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You may look in the mirror and say, I know where I have been, and I know where I think I am right now. And because of that, I wish my God would call those things that are as if they are not. But I want to remind you, my heroes of faith, God will not in your life Call those things that are as if they are not. But He will look at you, and though you have things that are not, He will call it out of you as if it is. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Freely you have received, freely give. So this morning, get ready to function far beyond where you were. Get ready to function far beyond where you are. Get ready to function at the place that your God and your King sees you in. He's not looking at a dead Lazarus laying in a tomb. He's looking at living servants of the living King. And He's saying, come out from among them. Be separate and do the work of the Lord. Amen. So this morning, we're going to allow Him to do that in us. So let's all circle up. Let's pray over this morning and get ready, get ready, get ready.